I've come up to the Black Wood of Rannoch because I wanted to add a couple of images to my Road to the Isles collection, but also because I wanted to try and grab some images of Loch Rannoch, which is right there. And as you can see, we've got a beautiful, clear, blue sky day, absolutely still, so some incredible reflections, and I'm going to try and work with that. So, as you can see, the loch itself is mirror flat, and we're getting some very nice symmetrical cloud reflections. So I'm going to try and find an interesting foreground, probably either a tree or some rocks here, and I'll set the camera up on a tripod. I'll try and avoid disturbing the water, and we'll see if we can get an image or two. This is beautiful. Right, I found this area where there's some patches of light falling through the trees onto the foreground rocks. So I'm just looking around to see if I can find a possible foreground interest so that we can include that alongside these incredible reflections. That looks like a possible candidate. That looks like an old tree stump or a fallen branch or something which is sticking up. Yeah, this here. So unfortunately it's not catching the light, but I might even be able to make something of this shaft of light and leave that as a silhouette against the perfect reflections in the loch. And we do have some light on these foreground boulders, so that might help as well. Right, so here's a shot that I've set up, and what I like is this kind of shaft of light that's just passing across and then leading the eye to the foreground interest, which is these rocks. I've got that trunk or branch, whatever it is, so that we have just a little separation between the distant shore and the top of the trunk, and then we've got this lovely light on the top there. We've got the beautiful reflection, which is what I was after, and all in all I think it's fairly balanced because half the image is dark apart from that shaft of light, while the other half is very bright apart from this shaft of darkness, if you see what I mean. So it kind of, almost like a yin and yang type thing going on there. We've got some faint light on the north shore of the loch, but the south shore's catching this beautiful light here, and for me really this line, and then having that echoed there, and the almost diagonal break up of the light and dark all makes for quite an interesting image. This is absolutely stunningly beautiful, look at this. Even looking down towards Loch Rannoch, the reflections are just beautiful. I might grab a shot down there actually as well. Again, using that shaft of light that we were using earlier as the foreground. Okay, I've taken that image. This is pretty much the composition. I've used these rocks, I've included these rocks as the foreground interest. Star of the show is this shaft of light, again just picking out details in individual rocks. You've got this incredible reflection, and again you've got the outline of the trees here and Loch Rannoch in the background. What I've done again is I've exposed for the background, and that's rendered the clouds, and I've managed to capture the details in that. And then I've refocused here and taking a second exposure about half the shutter speed, just to make sure I've caught the details in these foreground rocks. And then if I need them, I might not need them, but if I need them, I can blend those details back in post-processing. This is just incredible. And I'm loving this line of clouds and its associated reflection. It's just beautiful. I might throw the polarizing filter on again, try and darken down the sky, darken down the reflection of the sky, and make the most of those patterns and the clouds. But yeah, absolutely beautiful. Okay, I've come a little bit further along, and this is primarily to shoot these reflections, these beautiful trees being reflected in the loch, and then you've got that long kind of field there which is just catching the light as well. The reflection isn't as perfect in that direction, but that's okay, because I think that just adds to it. What I really like though, again, is the clouds. Now, what I have noticed though, is if I go a little wider, we have this boulder here, which a second ago was just catching the light. Seems to have faded just now. But once I've taken some telephoto lens shots, I'm going to throw the wide angle on again and use this as foreground interest, because I like the way it was catching the light, but also that colour contrast, the beautiful greens and yellows. There's a little hint of orange and red in there as well. Contrasts lovely with the blue sky and the reflection. So I'll quickly grab these and then we'll try and get this shot. I really like the bark and the exposed root on that big tree there. And again, we've got it kind of backlit. We've got this splash of light in the foreground again, and then we have the beautiful reflection in Canon Wood of Rannoch in the background. I wonder if I move, no, if I go too close to the tree, I lose it behind the leaves of the tree in the foreground. This is about as close as I can get. So probably something like that. Right, actually now that I've got this in the camera, I quite like it. And what I really like is the fact that we've got this little patch of light here as well, which I hadn't really noticed when I was framing the shot up. Also the fact that we've got a bit of distinction between the rock here and the start of the reflected mountain. That's giving a little degree of separation. Then you've got this lovely blue strip of light, which is coming through and connecting pretty much just where the tree line ends. Right, I like this. I'm going to have to clone out the sign which is there, but otherwise I quite like it as a composition. I'm using this boulder here as a kind of foreground interest, because there's some nice patterns on the boulder and they've got the lichen. Then you've got these little ferns here which are just starting to turn, and there's a little path leading the eye up to these 3 trees. That one in the middle is actually the one I was shooting earlier from down on the shore. I've gone quite tight. I'm at 35mm on the 16 to 35mm lens, and that's taking an exposure of 100 ISO f11 and 1/10 of a second for the foreground, and about 1/40th of a second for the background. But again, a nice shot. I might go a little wider actually and make more of these foreground ferns. But see, I do want to include that path, and if I go too wide then I start to include an awful lot of sky as well. So what I might do is remove the sky. So I'll go wide so that I can include these ferns and the path still. More of the acorns and all the detritus of the forest in the foreground. But I'll cut off about there so I don't include too much sky. Yeah, I'll try that again. Same idea, focus on the boulder, focus on the tree. Right, I've come across this, and it's fairly sheltered. It's under a canopy of leaves, so it's quite dark, and that means I should be able to draw out the exposure a little bit and create some motion in the water. It's quite a nice little babbling brook, isn't it? Right, what do you make of this? This is the shot I've set up. I've focused on the lip of the falls here, and I'm just having that beautiful reflected sky and canopy of leaves to the top of the frame, and then you've got a kind of more of a darker, mysterious feel to the base of the frame, where you just have the swirls and eddies of the waterfall, or the cascade, sorry, as it spins down and out of the bottom of the frame. It's quite a basic shot, but I quite like it. I think it's quite moody. And as you might imagine, it's taking quite a bit of exposure compensation, so I've had to shoot at fairly fast shutter speed in order to retain all the highlights and the brighter part of the top of the frame, and then I've had to drag the shutter down quite a bit in order to even get any detail in the darker base. But if I can combine them together in post-processing, I think that's got the makings of quite a nice kind of moody, dreamlike image, and I like it. I particularly like the fact that we've got just a little patch of light now starting to catch this rock and these foreground rocks as well, so that's kind of giving it a bit more depth. But yeah, I like that. I'm going to take this shot and then I'm going to recompose slightly, go a little bit wider, but same idea, but try and make the brighter part of the sky, this part here, a little bit smaller in the frame, and really emphasise the dark section so that we can make more of those swirls and eddies as they fall over these rocks below. But yeah, I think that's got some potential. So yeah, I took those shots. Ended up taking 2 or 3 variations of the same kind of idea. Darker base, brighter top part, kind of soft focus feel, kind of quite dreamlike. So I'm making my way further upstream, and all the while looking for shots in the trees, because I'm now in the Black Wood of Rannoch. So I'm looking for shots in the trees, but also keeping an eye on that burn to see if there's any more potential images with the little waterfalls. I've just remembered, I think when we get to the other side, there's a lovely little waterfall that I shot once before, which has the dubious distinction of being the first of my photographs ever to be stolen and printed and hung on someone's wall, but not by me. Right. Now that's nice, isn't it? What? Very, very cluttered. And that branch which has fallen down there, that thin one, is kind of destroying the image. So what I'm going to have to do here, I think, is probably underexpose the image quite a bit, so that I throw the majority of the image into darkness. Concentrate on the line of the stream and on those beautiful green mossy rocks in the foreground there, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to clone that branch out. Yeah, I've taken that. I've actually taken 3 separate compositions, each one zoomed in a little tighter on the waterfall. They all unfortunately include that fallen branch, so I'm going to have to make a decision on whether I keep that or lose it. I think actually the tighter crop, the one where I was zoomed in to about 100mm, actually looked better on the back of the camera, but we'll decide later on about that. Right, so here we are. These are the falls that I shot, which were the subject of my first copyright theft and subsequent illegal printing. I've just been shooting it again, but obviously I'm using a different camera now. I'm using slightly different lenses, and my technique for shooting waterfalls has changed, and hopefully I've improved a little bit as a photographer since I took this shot the last time, which was about 10 years ago, I think, probably something like that. So the real test is whether this one gets nicked now, isn't it? If this one's not deemed nickable, then the first one was obviously better. I might stick the first one on the screen for you to compare and contrast. What really caught me about these falls is it's kind of an optical illusion. The line of the rocks, the strata, is actually going off at an angle of about 20 or 30 degrees. So I'm actually shooting these waterfalls pretty much straight on, but because the actual rock face is tilted slightly, it looks as though the waterfalls are quite squinty, but they're not really. Right, so that's it for a little taster of the Black Wood of Rannoch and also Loch Rannoch. If you enjoyed the video, then feel free to hit like and subscribe, and if you want to join my newsletter, there's a link in the description below. Also, if you're interested in the area, there's going to be an associated Tales from Scotland video about this particular location. More specifically, the area around the loch that I started off at. But if you want to find out a little bit more about at least one of the legends associated with the location, then pop over to Tales from Scotland. I'll leave a link in the description as well. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers, bye.